Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you on this Tuesday evening. Got a great show for you guys today. We're going to talk a little bit about Howard Schultz. So the former CEO of Starbucks, jumping into the race, possibly. Oh boy, I've got some words for that. Not only that, we have Christie making an appearance. That's always fun on the show. We have some of the victims of the shutdown, some of the ones that have actually been forgotten. So we're going to talk about that. I think that's really interesting. Then we've got Warren versus Howard Schultz. And then finally, Bernie Sanders and BDS. So that's really, really important. Recent BDS vote that had happened. So we're going to talk about that. But first, before I get into it, we have channel memberships. So if you haven't already, please sign up to be a member. You can help the show. It's $5. Or you can become a Patreon patron on patreon.com/TYTNation and contribute whatever you'd like per month. All of it goes to, of course, help the show. We're still raising money for that fundraiser for the camera, of course, as you know, we're going to do until we get that full amount. And are able to get a brand new camera. So that's the updates on that stuff. Please like and share the stream as well. That helps us continue to spread the message and get the show out. All that stuff, you know, the standard stuff. All right, so let's get into my thoughts about the Kamala Harris town hall. I don't know if you guys were watching. I was watching. I was actually watching the TYT coverage as well and doing a little bit of live tweeting on my own. Some of you might have noticed that. And immediately, and I think we're going to see a lot of this, if you question Kamala Harris at all, if you say, hey, wait a minute, her current rhetoric, and I'll get into more of that too, does not quite match her record as a former prosecutor of California. If you dare to question that or examine that, you are apparently now a sexist. Already it has begun. Either you're a sexist or you're really nervous for some reason about Kamala Harris, which I'm not. She's barely even polling. But I'm also going to give good credit to, I wouldn't say huge credit, but credit to Kamala Harris too for an incredibly strong town hall performance, at least on some issues. And, but no, we're apparently all insecure for some reason, sexist, for questioning her, you know, her record. Okay, fantastic. So now we know where we stand on that. I mean, come on, man. It's not even, like, we still are a year out, at least, from the Iowa caucus. And it's still January, and already it has begun. Wonderful. Yeah, I'm seeing some of you don't have Twitter to stay sane. I know, I understand, man, but I'm on Twitter probably too much. And that's, I mean, look, I guess it used to be a great place for activism, but not so much. Now it is a disastrous hell site. So, wonderful. Great. So yeah, that's what Kamala Harris, some Kamala Harris supporters already think, already believe, if you question her. But I believe we should question everybody on the record. I believe that we should ask about certain votes. We should ask, hey, man, look, there's a discrepancy here. For example, you're against the death penalty, as Harris said last night, but also advocated in favor of California's death penalty back in 2014. So what? Like, okay, how do you square that? How do you square that? I don't know if you can. I mean, look, I'm fine with people changing and evolving on their issues, but when it's sudden or when they start to not be honest about their previous positions, that's a problem, man. That's problematic, right? So, anyway, my thoughts on some of the answers. I did give her credit for saying unequivocally, I believe in Medicare for all. Great, great. That shows how well we're doing, right? When they're taking your ideas and actually running on those ideas, that's fantastic. Now, do we believe her? That's the issue. As progressives, I don't think we believe her, but I think as progressives, we shouldn't believe her. We shouldn't believe not just her, but we shouldn't believe any politician. We should question, and we should verify, right? So this is to avoid, of course, getting burned like we did back in 2008, 2012. In 2008, Obama ran as a progressive, but he governed as a centrist. So there's a lot of fantastic rhetoric, but be warned. That rhetoric doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that policy. So I am a little concerned about politicians that will tack the left to the left during a primary, and then say, "Oh, you know, we're gonna have to go to the center now. It's in a general." So that's what's going on here. And by the way, speaking of the Obama example, Kamala Harris, watching her last night, she was smart, she was well-spoken, she was polished, and she was researched, and is a very good speaker. You know who that reminds me of? President Obama, Barack Obama. So when I look at Kamala Harris, well, not like physically, but how she does things, how she conducts herself, you know, how she answers questions, I see President Obama, for good or ill. And look, President Obama, he's a decent president, right? I mean, again, he was smart. He was pragmatic, I guess. That doesn't necessarily work in his favor. Knew how to govern and could speak in full sentences. When you compare it to what we have now, oh my God. Oh, go back to Obama. Would love to. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that about President Obama's tenure that progressives like me very wary of, right? So, for example, staying in the wars in the Middle East, increasing drone strikes, signature strikes. We've covered all that stuff. Actually going up and you know, punishing people like Chelsea Manning, who were leakers, who actually, you know, leaked stuff for the good of the country that didn't harm our troops or didn't put anybody in harm's way. So, look, that's it. There's a lot of, I think, parallels to Kamala Harris and President Obama, which makes me think here we are going to have a centrist pragmatist that right now is saying the right things and saying, oh, no, I believe in progressive stuff. I believe in, you know, progressive ideology. For example, Medicare for all. I'm totally in favor of Medicare for all. I'm in favor of a Green New Deal. She has said those things. But do we believe her? No, I don't think we will. At least I don't, and I can't say for anyone else. But I know that when she says those things, I'm very cautious, and I'm very wary of false promises. And again, I will look at every single candidate that is running and ask, are they genuine? Or are they sincere? And I think for a lot of the establishment candidates, there's going to be a lot of red flags. Already for Harris, you know, she's really close to Wall Street. She's on the Wall Street safe list. You know who isn't? Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. So already those two, I'm much more interested in their respective campaigns. Just because, well, again, Wall Street is really, really scared of this, of both Warren and Sanders and their respective campaigns. So, anyway, so like I said, generally some pretty good answers. Strong on Medicare for all, the rhetoric at least, so that was a good answer. Strong on gun control, another good answer, but that's like a layup. And I think she's going to be a contender. I think she'll make it top 3, maybe. The establishment is definitely interested in her. So again, that's to progressives like me, that's another red flag. So, but we're going to have to see. Being a prosecutor, being the top cop, that's going to hurt her a lot with progressives. But I think right now the establishment is getting to be enamored with her, just like they were with President Obama. So again, that could be a big problem. Okay. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. All right. So now, let's get in some of the show. Let's see. We'll start out with. Oh, before I get into it, Rexel has sent a super chat, simply saying, today is well, he said Kingdom Hearts 3. So today is the release day for Kingdom Hearts 3. So I've got a lot of family members and friends that have been looking forward to that game for about 13 years. So it's here. It's finally here. So I played some of the previous games. They're good. But I'm not one who's like way into that. But God bless. Glad it's out finally. I'm still waiting for the Final Fantasy VII remake. How about we work on that before then you'll see me get super excited. Okay. So let's dive in. Let's talk about Christie. Okay. Love it. Oh, it's been a long time since a good Christie story. Oh, it was great. It's old times. So Christie is out with a new book. So this book is called Let Me Finish, which brings me back to a Dana Carvey skit back from Saturday Night Live way back when. Some of our younger viewers are like, what are you talking about? Can I finish? Can I finish? I think he was playing George H.W. Bush. Anyway, I might be wrong on that. It's been a long time. So anyway, he's on MSNBC's Morning Joe. Christie is. And he's talking about how he would have beaten President Obama had he run in 2012. Oh, come on. Are you serious? You think that you were going to beat President Barack Obama? Well, okay, look, maybe he had the better chance of, say, Mitt Romney or Mittens Romnington III with his dancing horse. But I don't think he would have still beaten Obama. Nonetheless, Christie asked whether he regretted his decision to not run against Obama. Christie said no. But he said it would have been a toss-up if he had. It would have been real close. I don't know, maybe. He said, though, quote, I just felt like I have no business running for president in the United States after being governor of New Jersey for 15 months. I'm not ready. I understood the political moment and understood that I probably had a pretty good chance to certainly win the nomination. And then who knows what would have happened against Barack Obama. You know, probably it was a jump ball. Jump ball and Christie are probably two things that don't belong into a sentence. Just saying. That's like me and jump ball. I can't do it either. I not only am woefully out of shape, being honest here, but I'm also terrible at sports and kind of clumsy, which is why I don't play sports. So me and jump ball also don't belong in the same sentence, just like you and Christie. But anyway, he continues. Let's see. Actually, no, that is the quote. Okay. Now, Twitter, of course, social media, the internet, I love it for many reasons. And when they go after Christie, I love it even more. So I'm going to read you some of those responses here. His Dudeness says, LOL, Christie thinks him running against Obama would have been a jump ball in 2012. Or in 12. Hilarious. Michael Reed says, Christie thinks he would have had a shot to beat President Obama. Isn't that sweet? William Farrow says, Christie just said on Morning Joe that if he had to run for president, against Barack Obama in 2012, it probably would have been a jump ball. Hashtag in his dreams. Amania says, man, Chris Christie has an inflated opinion of his own political chances winning an election against Obama. Ellen Bender says, this whole segment is absurd. The idea that if Chris Christie ran against Obama, it would have been a jump ball. Nice to have delusions, Chris. Barry Udoff says, how could you contain your laughter when Christie said had he run against Obama, it would have been a jump ball? And Josh says, by the way, Chris Christie isn't winning a jump ball against Barack Obama in politics or basketball. Savage. So, now this is funny because Chris Christie did run in 2016 and he got slaughtered. Terribly. Now, look, to be fair, the one thing that Chris Christie actually did do in 2016 is basically unman Marco Rubio. More so, well, maybe not more so than Donald Trump had done so. But he basically took out Marco Rubio. He was done after Chris Christie. Because I remember in the debates that Christie kept pointing out, he's like, this guy's like talking like a robot with his talking points. And he just keeps coming up and regurgitating the exact same talking point every time. Verbatim. This guy's like a robot. That right there was enough to basically eliminate Marco Rubio. So you got to give him some credit. But at this point, Chris Christie, in that nomination process, had been Donkey Konged by Donald Trump. He was trying to be Trump, right? He got out-Trumped. Maybe he would have had a better shot in at least a 2012 nomination, right? But definitely not in 2016. So as far as going against Obama, I think he probably still would have lost. But who knows, right? But the idea that he could do jump ball with Obama? Don't think so, man. Don't think so. Okay. So let's get to a serious story. Let's talk shutdown. But Jeff, the shutdown's over. But wait. Okay. So the government shutdown over Donald Trump's wall may be over. However, the economic impact on some of the most vulnerable government workers is going to be felt for some time. Now, the Washington Post did a great article. Every once in a while, they'll go and do some actual journalism and talk to real people and find out how they live, which is great. I encourage that because it helps to know how real people live. Anyway, in this piece, they profiled several of the lowest paid federal workers who were obviously also missing pay, such as along the lines with a lot of the other federal workers that were on furlough, right? So now one of them was Audrey Murray Wright. Now she's a cleaning supervisor at the National Portrait Gallery. So now she was one of the more than 1 million federal contract workers who during the Donald Trump's shutdown of the wall had lost their income. Now, during that time, she recounts talking about how much her bills are. She's got a $2,000 mortgage, right? Mortgage payment, she's got a $168 electric bill, etc., right? Now, one of the costs that she couldn't afford was her blood pressure medication. Not only that, but she recounts having to ration groceries. In fact, she said during this interview, quote, I never ever want to tell my son. She has two sons, I think it's 12 and 15, and she said, don't drink all the milk so you can save your brother some. So that's just like, hey, we can't afford more groceries, so save what we have, right? Take a little bit less. Put a little bit less in your cereal so you can save your brother some milk for his. So That's just some of the pain. Now, she said that because of the shutdown, even though that it's over, she's still struggling to support her 2 children, and that it basically ripped through her savings. Quote, I did have a little money in the bank. Now that's all gone. I don't have any help. My electricity might be turned off any day now. Now, of course, there are administration spokesmen like Wilbur Ross, who came out there and said, well, I don't quite understand what the problem is. They could just go out and take a loan. Or you also have Stephen Mnuchin, who said, oh, hey, look, it's a vacation. Think of it as like a vacation when you're not working. And by the way, what are you worried about? You sound like you're not going to get back pay, right? Well, look, the 800,000 federal workers did get back pay. However, unfortunately, a lot of these contractors, or most of these contractors, actually won't get paid. In fact, according to the Post, unlike the 800,000 career public servants who are slated to receive full back pay over the next week or so, the contractors who clean, guard, cook, and shoulder other jobs at federal workplaces aren't legally guaranteed a single penny. So, not only did they just lose 35 days of pay, they will not get back pay. That's devastating. And look, it's not the first time, too. There was a shutdown back in 2013 over the ACA. Republicans shut down the government because they didn't want people to get health care. Oh my God, right? Now, that was 16 days long. And of course, you had federal workers, 850,000 federal workers at that time, that actually did get their back pay. Well, however, about 1,200 cleaners, security guards, and food service workers in the Washington area had received no back pay, no makeup pay whatsoever. And there are more examples. Julia Quintanilla, who's worked for the past 27 years as a janitor at the Agriculture Department and other federal agencies, said she cashed in the last of her sick days during the shutdown so that she could continue getting some sort of income. Now she's worried that she won't be able to afford taking care of her mother with dementia without risking her job security. Quote, her mental abilities are failing. She needs my help. The shutdown actually cost her about $1,000 in her savings. And of course, she ended up getting into debt for $1,000 and relied on churches in order to get free meals. Now let's go back, of course, to Wilbur Ross saying, I don't quite understand why these federal workers are going to food banks. This is why. She is not eligible for back pay either. In fact, they said, quote, since you are contract workers, when the government shuts down, you're going to stay home. There is no work. Now, not only that, but you have Devon Russell. Now, Devon Russell is the security guard at the Smithsonian in the Museum of Natural History. Now, when he ended up getting furloughed, he ended up applying for unemployment. And look, he was able to get unemployment, I should say. And that money ended up being quite a bit less than his normal paycheck amounts, right? Now, add to that it didn't actually arrive to him until last week. Well, that put him in a little bit of a financial hard spot, right? Now, he says that he's thrilled to return to work, but says it's really hard to celebrate when I've lost a month of income. Now, he has a 3-year-old daughter and says, over this shutdown, I lost about $2,000. I'm not getting that money back. I'm not going to see any of it again. He says, quote, I was living paycheck to paycheck. When all the funds stopped coming in, I was just like, what do I do now? Well, there's not a whole lot you can do. Now, not only that, but you've got Lanice Hamilton. Now, that's another guard at the Smithsonian. Said she watched about $1,000 disappear from her bank account during the budget stalemate. She started her job in May, thinking that a government job would actually be more stable. Turns out, government job, not so stable. She said, quote, I thought it'd be better. Well, how much better is she off? Apparently, she said, I'm late on all of my bills. Every single one of them. Catching up, she estimates, will take about 2 months. And again, they don't make back pay So they're not getting anything for that. And to add to it, those jobs, being janitor or being a security guard, it's actually some of the lowest paid positions in the government as contract work, right? In fact, they're the lowest paid laborers in the government economy, generally earning between $460 and $650 weekly, according to union leaders. Now, in Maryland, Washington especially, this is not a lot of money, right? This is actually fairly awful. The year before, one of those workers has a $2,000 mortgage. This is the cost of Donald Trump's shutdown. People, their lives were wrecked because Trump and Republicans wanted to hold the government hostage for a ridiculous border wall, something that wouldn't actually solve any problems. And back, as I said before, in 2013, they did the same thing over what? Giving people health care. Republicans are the problem here. They keep taking these people's lives hostage in order to get their extreme agenda passed because they get it in any other way. I mean, look, for the last 2 years, President Trump had full control of the federal government on all branches, right? So he could have passed funding for a border wall. Why didn't he do that? Well, because he realized that his biggest focus was himself and giving himself and his friends and his donors giant tax cuts. So he focused on that. And then, you know, here comes 2020 coming closer. He goes, oh, right, I got to build a wall because my racist followers really, really want me to build a wall to keep out the Mexicans. So now I'm going to hold the government hostage. Well, it didn't turn out very well, did it? Right? And you think they learned. But again, no, they didn't learn. Donald Trump's talking about shutting down the government again if they don't come up with a budget deal within the next couple of weeks. So here we go again. I mean, look, these people, these regular working people are not going to be able to go through another shutdown. There's no way. And so, look, it's important that we get these people's stories out to show you how not just the normal federal workers, which again, have also experienced tons of hardship, but at least are getting some sort of back pay, that there are people actually worse off than them that also are being forgotten in this conversation and lose out every time Republicans decide to hold the government hostage over their extreme agenda. So let's not forget about these people and try to make sure that we elect politicians that won't hold the government hostage. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We got these Howard Schultz stories. So I think you'll have a lot of fun with these. So stay right here. We'll come back. Like and share the stream if you haven't already. I'll read super chats and, you know, see if we have any new members after the break. So stay right here. We'll be right back. Around the Nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you. We have a new member. I want to welcome. It's Liberte Almagfi. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for signing up to be a member, but your name is kind of hard for me. So names are hard, but thank you so much anyway. I appreciate it. One of these days, I will learn how to say that stuff. But anyway, thanks for signing up to be a member. You can do so by hitting the join button. If you want to see me butcher your name, or hear me butcher your name, thank you. All right. So let's get into the rest of these stories here. Let's do Howard Schultz. Been looking forward to this story all day because of how ridiculous it is. All right. So let's dive in. So former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz does not like the direction that Democrats are taking. Basically following the lead of people like AOC, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. So now Schultz, who is a former Democrat, plans now to possibly run a 2020 campaign in order to stop the Democrats from themselves, as he says. I just want to stop the Democrats from embracing the far left. Now, during an interview with 60 Minutes, I'm not actually going to show you the video because, copyright, etc., demonetization, all that fun stuff. In this interview, he told host Scott Pelley that, quote, he's seriously considering running for president. Now, he's not running inside the Democratic Party. He's literally running as a, quote, centrist independent. He's not even a Democrat, guys. Oh, it's like the first time I get to say that. He's not even a Democrat. Now, asked why he is not running in the Democratic Party, he gave this answer. He said both parties are, quote, consistently not doing what's necessary on behalf of the American people. Well, on that sentiment, I think that you would actually find a lot of agreement. However, as far as Schultz is concerned, okay, well, what does he think is necessary to help America? And in order to find out what he thinks is necessary, we should probably ask him what he thinks is wrong. Well, luckily they did. Now, during the interview, he said that the main concern is the national debt. He said, quote, we are sitting today with approximately $21.5 trillion worth of debt, which is a reckless example not only of Republicans, but of Democrats as well. It's a reckless failure of their constitutional responsibility. So here we've got a fiscal deficit hawk. Oh boy. Now, he also said last year that, quote, the national debt is the greatest threat domestically to this country. National debt, made up fake numbers, right? That's what that is, right? That's what all budgets, that's what all money is. Let's be honest. It is literally imaginary because we have assigned it value, right? And we trust that it's going to be used to be able to get other things of value. And look, I encourage you guys to all listen to Pitchfork Economics with Nick Hanauer. That is a fantastic podcast. I've actually been learning quite a lot. So go listen to that because he kind of gets into detail why this, what the economic system is and what the problems are. But anyway, getting into this, so Schultz thinks the biggest problem with America is the national debt. The biggest threat. Not climate change. Climate change, we've only got 12 years to address it. And we have to address it in a very big way that includes going carbon neutral, or we are basically screwed as a society. That is not as big of a threat as the national debt, according to Howard Schultz. Okay, man. All right, but I'm not done here. Now, he answered a couple of different answers. To be fair, on immigration, he says, well, of course, we have 11 million people that are here, and, people like the DACA recipients, for example, well, we should give them a chance. We should give them a chance to, earn their citizenship, things like that, right? Okay, yeah. But on healthcare, which is really, really important, it's kind of near and dear to my heart. Maybe also kind of literally. But anyway, on healthcare, he says, every American deserves the right to have access to quality healthcare. Here we go again. Oh, no, you deserve the right to have access. Well, I already have the right to access a Lamborghini. Doesn't mean I'm going to be driving home in one anytime soon. So, because I don't have the money. Now, he says, addressing the people that don't have money to pay our exorbitant healthcare costs, he says, quote, what the Democrats are proposing is something that is false as the wall. And that is free healthcare for everyone, which the country cannot afford. I mean, we're $21.5 trillion in debt. We can't afford to give people health care. No, in fact, his policy proposal to tackle the national debt is to, number one, have a pro-growth economy. That sounds like a Republican talking point. And number two, cut entitlement spending. So basically, he's a Republican. Okay. But on his point about Medicare for All being more expensive, we just can't afford it, right? You realize that Medicare for All would actually cost less than our current system, right? How are you not able to afford stuff that is cheaper than what you're currently paying? I mean, according to the most conservative estimate, in a literal sense, Medicare for All will save the country $2 trillion over the next 10 years. Okay? And most studies actually have that number around $6 trillion. So Medicare for All saves money, and it also saves people's lives. But Howard Schultz is living in that Republican propaganda, right? So he has heard and internalized that Republican propaganda that, oh no, we can't afford things. We got to cut the deficit. We got to cut the debt. And we've got to cut entitlements to do it, and then have a pro-growth economy, which means, of course, lower taxes on people like him. Although he says, well, I think the Trump tax cuts were a little too much. I would have cut them just a little bit for corporations. And of course, the Green New Deal. Oh no, that's completely unaffordable. We can't do that. We should go with go back to the Paris Climate Agreement. Now look, the Paris Climate Agreement, Donald Trump was an idiot for pulling out. And I agree with Schultz on that, right? He says, oh, well, it was pretty stupid for us to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. But you have to also understand that the Paris Climate Agreement is not enough. It's not enough to be able to curb the worst of climate change. No, what we need is something very, very bold, something incredible and transformative, like a Green New Deal, which will not only turn our economy away from fossil fuels onto alternative energy sources, but also create tens of millions of jobs in the process and create economic growth. And yes, it will take spending, and yes, it will take investment. And guess what? AOC has actually proposed a way to pay for it that doesn't increase the deficit. How? By taxing people like Howard Schultz 70% over anything made over $10 million. Oh, radical. Remember, Howard Schultz is worth about $3 billion. So, yeah, he would get taxed at quite a bit. But it would go to pay for a Green New Deal. But here's the thing, right? So, he doesn't like that. He doesn't want to pay a little bit more or a lot more in taxes. Keep it real. This is why he's jumping into the race. Because he sees these politicians like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders thinking, Bernie Sanders hasn't jumped in yet, but Elizabeth Warren has, talking about, oh my God, they're going to tax the rich. They're going to tax the rich and tax the corporations. Oh, no, we can't have that. No, we can't do that. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to be a spoiler. So that's what's going on here. In fact, on Elizabeth Warren, he had some words for her. He said on Tuesday's, Tuesday's morning edition of NPR that Warren's plan for a 2% annual tax on Americans whose net worth exceeds $50 billion is, quote, ridiculous. So, oh man, you want to tax the rich people over $50 billion? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Oh, we can't have that. Can't have that. Don't touch my money. In fact, he says, quote, she knows for a fact that it's never going to be passed. You know, I can't wait for President Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, along with a bunch of AOC-inspired progressives, passes a wealth tax or a 70% tax, marginal tax rate on the rich, or both, which would be fantastic. You know what would happen to Howard Schultz? His head would explode. Schultz also went after Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris, in her recent town hall on CNN, was unequivocal on Medicare for all. She said, we must have a Medicare for all system. Now, great. Not only that, but AOC was also attacked by Howard Schultz by being, and he said that she was, quote, misinformed and that her policy ideas were, quote, un-American. Oh, really? Un-American. You know those policy proposals that you're calling un-American? It turns out most Americans support them. 70% approval for Medicare for all. Not only that, but you have over 70% approval for free college and even a Green New Deal. Not only that, but of course, marginal tax rates of 70% for anyone making $1 over $10 million is something that America used to do. In fact, that marginal tax rate for the very top 1%, for the richest, 0.1%, for the richest Americans was up to at least 90% for the wealthy. Anything made over $2 million was taxed at 90% during Republican presidencies. So please, tell me how un-American that is. You don't know the history because you have been inundated with the propaganda and you believe it yourself. This is gross, right? Absolutely gross. And look, here's what he's doing, right? He's considering being a spoiler and possibly helping Donald Trump win, or maybe not, because he doesn't want his taxes to go up. Period. That's what this is about, right? And it's gross. And it's the naked greed of these guys who have bought and internalized this conservative propaganda that is actually damaging to this country. That's what's un-American. And if you're wondering, as I said before, what he would do if he got elected, which is very unlikely, he, as I said before, would pay off the debt by cutting entitlements, cutting your Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Because everyone wants an out-of-touch billionaire to cut their Social Security in service to the debt. Now, sit down, Howard. Sit down. Okay. One more thing on Schultz. All right. Senator Elizabeth Warren has hit back after being attacked by former CEO Howard Schultz. Now, Schultz, of course, went after her plan to raise taxes on wealthy Americans. He called it, quote, ridiculous, and said that all she was looking for is a good headline. In fact, quote, she knows for a fact that it's never going to get passed. Now, look, is he right about that? Does this bill have a chance? No. No, he's right about that. Not because it's radical or unpopular. No, polls show that there is a strong desire among both Republicans and Democrats and independents for taxing rich people and using that money to invest in infrastructure, healthcare, and education, right? So that would be popular. No, it doesn't have a chance because rich people control Congress. Rich people are in Congress. And it would be their wealth that would be taxed. Congress is a millionaires club, especially in the Senate, where it takes at least $2 to $3 million to run. So all of these millionaires that are writing the laws and passing the laws are like, I'm not going to pass something that raises my taxes. Oh, don't touch my money. Right? Now, on that, of course, Warren responded to Schultz. She said, quote, What's ridiculous is billionaires who think they can buy the presidency to keep the system rigged for themselves while opportunity slips away for everyone else. The top 0.1% who pay my ultra-millionaire tax own about the same wealth as 90% of America. It's time for change. It is time for change, and I absolutely love that. Out of all the proposals, by the way, that Howard Schultz went after, Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, etc., right? The wealth tax is the one that actually scares them the most. Because Howard Schultz is worth about $3 billion. And this guy, a lot of these billionaires, unfortunately, are like the dragon from The Hobbit, Smaug. Don't you dare touch my gold. I'm going to come after you. So, look, I actually love how this is turning out, this entire primary, and we've barely even started. Here you have establishment figures like Kamala Harris, right, now doing full-throated endorsements of Medicare for all. Not only that, but you have people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders that are scaring the crap out of Wall Street, because if one of those guys gets into office, they might actually regulate the banks and these institutions and actually enact taxes on the rich. And then you have this guy, Schultz, a former Democrat, running as a spoiler. What happened? He's not even a Democrat, guys. And I love this tweet from Matthew Iglesias, right? He tweeted out, the goal here for Schultz is something like a billionaire's veto on elections, where if Democrats dare challenge the plutocracy too fundamentally, they'll be blocked by a self-funded spoiler. I think that is incredibly accurate. And then Nate Silver, of course, chimed in. Nate Silver from 538. He says, going to be ironic when Schultz is responsible for electing Bernie Sanders, because well-off mocha-drinking suburbanites who would otherwise vote their class interest are able to vote for Schultz instead of Donald Trump. Oh, that's good. I love that. They're like actually getting some self-awareness here. Because, look, realize that the people who Clinton was going after, those same, mocha-drinking suburbanites, and hey, I love a good mocha, right? But I'm not a suburbanite. I am not well off. These people, even though they didn't like Donald Trump's racism, they still voted for Donald Trump. They did not vote for Hillary Clinton. People who were well off voted for the Republican because they will be even more well off because they get tax cuts. So now they're saying, well, they might not vote for Donald Trump. They might vote for this non-racist independent. I don't know if that's true, but I still love how he brought that up. But he later clarified in another tweet. He said, I'm saying a voter who thinks Bernie is a bridge too far in economics, but that Trump is a little racist, is probably more likely than not to vote for Trump, especially if they're personally well off and the economy is good. So Schultz could drain their votes and help Bernie. Oh, if that's what happens, that'd be wonderful. Oh, that'd be great. I mean, again, the guy is running on eliminating debt and cutting entitlements. That's not something I think a lot of Democrats would vote for. Though I do think a lot of Republicans might be like, instead of the idiocy that is Trump and the constant scandal and the ridiculous wall that we know is not going to happen, but we could elect Howard Schultz, or at least vote for Howard Schultz, and get some sort of actual fiscal, in their words, sanity back. Now, I think that, of course, focusing too much on the deficit and, talking about cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, that's crazy talk, right? And we should be focused on actually getting Medicare for all, which would be cheaper, and a Green New Deal, which would create tens of millions of jobs. That's actually a more sane position. But again, Republicans, right? But I also think that there are some members of the establishment who are never Bernie people. And I think that's actually a really, really small amount of people might actually go for that protest vote with Howard Schultz. So I think he'll likely siphon some people that are disgusted with Trump and, of course, center-right establishment Democrats, because he basically has right-wing economic positions that are incredibly comfortable for the establishment. Nonetheless, Schultz has gotten a ton of criticism from, of course, Democrats, even establishment Democrats at this point, and everybody else. So he's not been doing very well with his announcement. So this is all this is happening all while Democrats are actually being pulled to the left on economic policy back to where most of the country is. So that's great. As far as Schultz is concerned, obviously this guy is likely not going to win, but we'll see how much damage, and we'll see how these never Bernie people happen to react to it if Bernie Sanders becomes the nominee. It should be fun to watch. Okay. Now, speaking of Bernie Sanders, let's go to our final story here. And of course, my button stopped working. All right. Senator Bernie Sanders just released a tweet calling out the Senate for attacking people's First Amendment rights over Israel. Now, this is all over S1 or SB1. Now, this is the first bill that the Senate has taken up in the new year, in the new term, I should say. And basically what SB1 is a way to criminalize people for protesting against Israel. Now, this bill was sponsored by Senator Marco Rubio, and it's a package of legislation that includes $38 billion in military assistance to Israel, because that's exactly what they need, as well as combating BDS Act, or as the Combating BDS Act. Now, that would give state and local governments more power to punish companies and individuals who boycott and divest from Israel. Now, he said, quote, "While I do not support the BDS movement, we must defend every American's constitutional right to engage in political activity. It is clear to me that this bill would violate Americans' First Amendment rights." So look, Bernie Sanders, he says, I'm not in favor of BDS, but I'm not in favor of criminalizing people for engaging in BDS. Now, I know some people are like, no, that's not enough. We should all be in BDS. And look, I don't think boycotts work all that much. So whatever. But if you want to do it, that's perfectly fine. There's no reason that you should actually be punished for saying, I don't want to buy products from a nation that oppresses people. In this case, Palestinians. Now, this is about freedom of protest. And that's what this is about. Now, If Not Now, which is an American Jewish advocacy group, went along the same lines as Senator Sanders in criticizing this bill. After the vote, which passed the Senate overwhelmingly 74-19, said, quote, "It's vile little law aimed at suppressing our democratic rights and silencing those fighting for solidarity with Palestinians would even make it to the Senate floor. Shame on our community's establishment for pushing this bill forward." And what establishment is that? Well, it's AIPAC. Now, AIPAC, of course, gives lots of money to politicians, both Democrats and Republicans. They are a gigantic lobbying group on behalf of the right-wing government of Israel. Now, they are actually, if not the most powerful lobbying group in America. So they have a lot of political power, right? Now, if you point that out, how they buy our politicians and redirect billions of dollars to the Israeli military, well, then somehow you're anti-Semitic, right? That's what they'll say. But wait, what if we don't want to support the brutal crackdowns on Palestinians? Well, you're an anti-Semite. That's their answer to that. But Jeff, you understand, the Palestinians sometimes shoot rockets and hurt innocent people. Yeah, they do, and that sucks, and that's dumb. And it's also wrong. But at the same time, you have a group of people that are penned in basically what is an open-air prison. If you treat an entire population as if they are animals, as if they are subhuman, don't be shocked when some of them lash out. I'm just saying. And on that, I despise Hamas, and I despise what they're doing. And Not only that, but I also despise Netanyahu. I'm not a fan of him. You know the Israeli leader that I actually like the most? Yitzhak Rabin. Yitzhak Rabin was my kind of guy. You know why? Because he wanted peace. Okay, from what I remember. And look, I want a two-state solution. I want to make sure that, yes, Israel is protected, and so is a Palestinian state that is also protected. To make sure that they all get along and have their own place to call home. Okay, but we're not doing that, apparently. No, the United States is actually instead trying to criminalize Americans for protesting the government of a foreign country. That's pretty messed up. Now, I've got more quotes here. Now, Rebecca Vilkomerson, who's executive director of the Jewish Voice for Peace, she said, quote, disappointing vote to undermine free speech rights for Palestinian freedom, but encouraging 19 senators understand minimal credibility as a progressive now includes standing up for the freedom to boycott. Exactly. Now, these senators, by the way, and I'm going to give you these senators. I'm not going to give you the, the names of the people who voted in favor of, this piece of legislation. Instead, I'm going to give you the 19 senators who stood up for free speech, right? And they were, along with Bernie Sanders, who's an independent, Tammy Baldwin, a Democrat from Wisconsin, Sherrod Brown, Tom Carper, Dick Durbin, Dianne Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein joining with Bernie Sanders, of course, to say this piece of legislation is terrible and it's against freedom of speech, and I am opposed to this. So now, you also have Kirsten Gillibrand, who's running for office, Mazi Hirono, Tim Kaine, Patrick Leahy, Jeff Merkley, Tim Murphy, Gary Peters, Gene Shaheen, Tom Udall, Chris Van Hollen, and Elizabeth Warren, among a couple of others, right? Now, there are 7 senators in total that did not vote. That includes Kamala Harris and Senator Cory Booker, as well as Senator Brian Schatz. So I don't know why they did not vote. I don't know why maybe they weren't there. Maybe they abstained. I don't know what happened. But the rest of those senators that I mentioned did the right thing. So now, all of those senators, like I said, who voted no, at least did the minimum to protect freedom of speech. So that's good. And I'm going to give them credit for that, because it is very difficult to go up against AIPAC and the Israeli lobby. And look, there's so much now division in the Democratic Party over Israel that a lot of the pro-Israel establishment Democrats are now trying to form a separate faction inside of the Democratic Party. So I was reading an article about this, and maybe I'll expand on it in another show. But basically, what they want to do is to continue the status quo relationship with the right-wing Israeli government, to continue sending them money for weapons, and to continue supporting them as they crack down on Palestinians. And so a lot of the Democratic Party, especially a lot of younger voters, are saying, now, wait a minute, they're a marginalized community, Palestinians, and maybe we shouldn't let and help Israel continue to crush them and build illegal settlements. Maybe we shouldn't do that. And so, and maybe we shouldn't let our politicians continue to get bought off by a lot of that money, a lot of their money, foreign money, right? So, look, again, I'm going to give them credit. Even if you don't support BDS, you should at least support the ability to not get criminalized for voicing your opinion in the products that you buy. So, especially if it's a country in which you don't agree with what they're doing. Okay. So, that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. I'm going to welcome a couple members before I head on, or I should say before I head out. Actually, one new member, Martin Trammell. So thank you, Martin. Appreciate that. Appreciate you becoming a member. You want to become a member, hit the join button. That is on the main page. Super easy to do. It's $5 and you can support this channel independent progressive media. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Love you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another great show. So tune in for that. TYT is next. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.